Hi, I'm Anne Bowditch and this is part 4 of my anxiety relief series, Calm Body, Calm Mind for Anxiety Relief. Just a reminder, if you haven't already, to hit the subscribe button so that you can keep up to date with videos. So what does your well-being have to do with anxiety? Well, lots, and let's have a look at what it does have to do with it. Anything that makes you feel better is going to be a punch in the face to anxiety. Sometimes we're looking for the big magical fixes, when actually what I realise when I'm working with my clients is often it's a contribution from different areas. So by looking after different aspects of your well-being, you might feel better by 1%, 2%, 5%, 10%. And if you add all of those percentages together from the different things that you do for yourself, all of a sudden you may have gained 30%. So I always say don't ignore the little things that can make a difference, because those little things all add up. And we're just going to look at the nervous system here, and there are two parts to your nervous system. We've got the sympathetic nervous system, and this is the stress part. So when you're anxious, you're in that part most, if not all of the time. And this is where those stress hormones are released. So we've got the adrenaline and cortisol as the most well-known stress hormones. And then the other side is the parasympathetic nervous system. Now this is the calm system. And this is when we rest, and when we rest and our body is calm, then we can digest properly. When we're in the stress system, we're not able to digest food very well, and obviously we have all of those awful other symptoms that go with being in anxiety. And if you think about it, a lot of people with anxiety have digestive issues. And when you're anxious, you're in that sympathetic nervous system. And that stress meter is right at the top. All of those extra stress hormones are being released. So they're sending messages through the body. And we're looking at different aspects of stress. And stress can come from so many different areas of life. And no wonder, really, that there are so many people nowadays suffering with anxiety and depression when you look at what we're trying to deal with and cope with on a day-to-day basis. So work for a lot of people is stressful, and there can be different aspects of work that are stressful. It may be related to people, it may be related to the type of work, particularly if you're unhappy there, you're not liking the work, that's a big stress. Also, it can be too much work. You might not like your boss, you might have fallen out with someone there. The sort of aspects of work stress are huge. Family and friends. Of course, these are the people we ordinarily expect to support us and to help us to feel good. But there are times when family and friend stress is huge, particularly if you fall out with someone, or sometimes they're going through a tough time and you're taking on some of that stress. Social media can be a huge one for stress. I'm not going to talk a lot about it because I do mention it in one of my earlier videos. But things like getting into arguments on social media, seeing a post that you find quite shocking, finding things out on social media, there's a lot of stress that's related to that. Socializing. A lot of anxiety sufferers are introverts and don't enjoy socializing, so often that aspect can be very stressful in itself. I personally hate big social occasions, and I can feel myself getting stressed at the thought of doing them, and normally avoid as many as I can. Too much to do, and not just in the work environment but at home. Even though now we have so many helpful electronic aids to get us through the day, we seem to be taking more and more on. People pleasing, common one for anxiety sufferers, not all of you, but a lot. And this is where we have to learn to look after ourselves a bit more. People can get stressed about their health, especially if you have a health issue. And sometimes you can have health anxiety as well. So health is another big one, because when we haven't got our health, it impacts so many other areas of life. And financial can be a huge stress for a lot of people. So have a think, maybe write down the main stresses in your life, because then you can start to problem solve. The problem with anxiety is it's looking for problems without solutions. And I'm a very solution focused person, which is partly why I do what I do as a therapist. But it's important also that you begin to get into the solution focused state of mind and not narrow down those options and choices you have, because I think that is often what a lot of people do, because sometimes you don't want to look at some of the choices you have in life. As an example, if work is stressful, you have an option to leave work and work elsewhere. But you might not want to do that because you're being really well paid, perhaps overpaid for what you're doing. You've got a big mortgage. A solution might be to downsize and leave and do something you enjoy more. But that's a decision. That's a life choice. So you do have choices. There are obviously a few things where you don't have choices over, but a majority of things we do, and also in how much we let other things affect us. So, of course, too much time in that sympathetic nervous system can impact you in many ways. And not just in the short term, we know what those short term anxiety responses are, but it can lead into more long term stress and long term health issues. We can become more emotional, maybe more angry, more frustrated, or even have outbursts of emotion. Fatigue, it's weary, isn't it? It wears you down being anxious all the time. It's exhausting. So fatigue is an obvious one, really, when you think about it. Digestive problems, I've touched on those already. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, lots of anxiety sufferers have digestive issues, food intolerances, and things like irritable bowel syndrome. Difficulty sleeping, that's because you've got too many of those stress hormones flying around, your brain won't switch off, and this can lead to insomnia as well. And obviously that can also add to the fatigue and also to the emotional issues. So there's knock-on effects all around. It's like a big cycle. And anxiety in itself can bring a lack of clarity of thought in the moment. But this long-term stress, together with all the other problems, may sometimes mean for you that you just generally lose your clarity of thought, you struggle to concentrate, you become more forgetful, and it really does mess with the mind. This can cause you headaches and migraines, and for an anxiety sufferer, sometimes you look into thinking that this could be more than it is as well. But of course, if you're stressed, you've probably also got tension around your neck and your shoulders. That in itself can lead to headaches and migraines. Tense muscles, I've just mentioned that. We hold ourselves tightly when we're stressed. So if you're permanently in anxiety or frequently anxious, this is going to lead to muscle tension and pain. So these issues really are a byproduct of anxiety in many ways. Therefore, we need to spend more time in the parasympathetic nervous system, so we need to spend more time in the rest and digest in the calm part of the system. So we've not got so much of this adrenaline and cortisol flying around the body. Now, I've mentioned about our lifestyles today, so because of today's lifestyles, it's important that we take time for that parasympathetic nervous system, the calm system. And it may be that you need to schedule into your diary well-being appointments for yourself. Obviously, if you can book things like massages, spa treatments, things that you enjoy, maybe a nice walk with a friend, put them all in the diary. But take some time for yourself each week. It should be each day, really. If you could even take 15-20 minutes for yourself each day, it's better than nothing. Sometimes we try and make big changes too quickly, and then we find, oh, I can't cope, it's no good, I haven't got time for myself. But sometimes you can just put 10 minutes into your day, and we're going to look shortly at the types of things that you can do for yourself. So here we have the activities for that calm system. Meditation. Now, lots of people might say, oh, I can't meditate, my mind's going way too 10 to the dozen. But actually, meditation isn't about completely turning off that mind. It's just acknowledging the thoughts and bringing back to here and now. Acknowledge the thoughts and bring back. Don't worry, you will get better at it. But again, you can't expect to be a brilliant meditator if you're not practicing it regularly. Slow, deep breathing. Now, we breathe anyway, so actually I don't think there's any excuse for not doing this slow, deep breathing. Far too often, none of us are breathing properly. I find it myself. I notice it most when I'm driving, and I recognise I'm only breathing down to a very shallow part of my lungs. So we can deep breathe at any time, but sometimes it's good to have little triggers for that. So things like being in queues, sat in traffic, when you're watching TV, when the adverts are on, or even simple things like you do a task, and after that task you do 2 deep breaths. And by the end of the day, you've done a whole load of deep breathing, and it's not taken up any more of your time. When I say deep breathing, it's right down into the abdomen area. Being creative is so incredibly good for you. I often make jewellery, and when I'm making jewellery, just beads, when I'm making that jewellery, my mind just shuts off from everything else. I don't have thoughts, I'm just focusing on what I'm doing. And creativity comes in all sorts of shapes, sizes. It could be knitting, crochet, it could be model making. It can be absolutely any range of things, as long as you feel good. And it's nice to get that time when your mind just switches off. It's good for all of us. Things like yoga, obviously, they're going to be good for us. It's good for the body as well as the mind. Tai Chi. Tai Chi is a wonderful practice if you haven't tried it. It really is so wonderful because it's very flowing and you can really feel the energy. It's so good for the mind and body. Simple things, walking. It's so easy to do things that are good for you, but just walking, ideally in a very nice scenic place if you can, but if you can't, then try and find some nice lanes to walk through. Just chilling out, listening to relaxing music. These are good things for the mind, really help you to calm that system down. A nice soak in the bath, again, just a good way to calm down that mad, crazy day that we have. And then at the end of the day, just have a nice soak in the bath, chill out, bring those anxiety hormones down. A nice treatment for yourself perhaps, and also because of that muscle tension, having a massage can be so good for you. Something like beach combing, if you have that ability, if you're living near a beach, that can be great as well. But I'm sure there's so many outdoor activities that you can do depending on which part of the world you live in. And this is just an idea of some of the things you can do for yourself to calm that mind down. And let's have a look at what we can do just to start small. So just 5 minutes of deep breathing or a 10-minute meditation can really be a great start to calming that mind and body down. As I've said, sometimes we try and make big gestures, but that can become too much for us. We get excited at first and we're all motivated, and then we get frustrated. We're like, no, I haven't got time in the day for this. But just start small and gradually build. If you could do 5 minutes of deep breathing every day for the next week, that's probably more than you've done for a very long time, if ever. So what's the aim of working in this parasympathetic nervous system? We should feel better when we've completed that activity, and I use the term activity very loosely because obviously some of this is almost inactivity. We should be more physically relaxed. Our heart should feel calmer, our body should feel less tense, less tension. And again, yes, the mind should feel much calmer, clearer. We should feel better in ourselves, more able to cope and deal with situations. We've given ourselves a break, haven't we? So what ideas can you come up with to spend more time in your parasympathetic nervous system? So the question is, what makes you feel good? But we're not looking for something that has a huge release of adrenaline or cortisol. We're not trying to add to those stress hormones. So, for instance, if you go out for a really hard run, on one hand, you will feel less stressed when you come back. But again, you've still been using those stress hormones. So we're looking for some of the things like I've talked about earlier, just nice, calming activities. Some people like to play a musical instrument. So it's something that makes you feel good. And if you've got a few things, that's even better. So what are the benefits of working in that parasympathetic nervous system? Calm mind, better clarity of thought. That's not to say that after one lot of 5 minutes of deep breathing, you're going to feel so much clearer in the mind. You have to keep doing these things. These are things that everybody should be doing. But of course, as I've said, today's fast pace of life often means that these things get missed. You should feel more physically relaxed. Improving your sleep. Now you can begin to see the knock-on positive effect. Calming that digestive system. More energy. It's almost like the reverse of all the other problems that I spoke about earlier. Those emotions will feel more positive, feel calmer. Yeah, because actually, if you think about it, when we're tired, when we're exhausted, when we can't think straight, we don't have much enthusiasm for life and we're not motivated to do a great deal. So we have to stop wanting these quick fixes. We're, again, a society that needs everything now and we have no patience. Well, when it comes to our well-being, we need to have that patience. And well-being is a lifelong issue. And you can do it. So the more time that you take to be calm, the better that you get at relaxing. It's like anything. Roger Federer, first time he picked up a tennis racket, he probably wasn't ready to win Wimbledon. Well, he certainly wasn't ready to win Wimbledon, but he practiced and he practiced. If you want to get better at looking after your mind and your body and to start to get the better of anxiety, then you need to invest in yourself. It's an investment. So, as I've said, do not ignore these things because they seem too easy. Remember, every positive thing you do is a punch in the face to anxiety. We've all got those 24 hours in a day. We all have choices. So what part of the day will you dedicate to your own well-being? Here I've just got a very simple technique that actually is in my book, The Energy of Anxiety. I'll just read it through for you. But if you're going to do this, just take time to do it. So we're not going to do it in full now. But what you do is you select some nice calming music, find a nice comfortable place to sit or lie down, somewhere ideally where you won't be interrupted, and just think of a colour, a nice calming colour. And then taking 5 deep belly breaths, slow and deep. And then very steadily just imagine sending that calming colour through every part of your body, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. So take your time to imagine that going through every single part of your body, just calming and calming it. And as you do this, imagine with each in-breath that you are breathing in that calming colour, and with each out-breath you are releasing stress and negativity. And ideally do this with your eyes closed, and allow yourself plenty of time to do this, ideally at least 10 minutes. And if you have time, you can run through it more than once so you can keep on releasing that stress. It's a really simple but can be very rewarding way of relaxing. If you'd like to know more, my book, The Energy of Anxiety, explains much more information about anxiety and how to get out of its grasp. And there's loads of exercises in there too, some short well-being ones, and lots of other techniques. So if you do buy the book, take your time to go through the exercise section. There's a lot in there. So it can take a bit of a while to go through, but do give yourself the benefit of doing those exercises because they can massively help you. Thank you for watching. I've enjoyed making the video and I hope you come back to view some more. If you did enjoy the video, please just give me a thumbs up.